Hello, everybody. Welcome to the 39th episode of EDH Takes. Now, you see, there haven't been very many episodes of EDH Takes this year. You might have thought that we were gone for good. But unlike a simple 1-1 with no evasion, EDH Takes does not die to removal.
We're here to
We
stay.
cannot be stopped.
Yeah.
Beset on all sides by enemies, the command zone, the spike feeder. Well, we're neutral on the spike feeders, I think, but the tabletop jocks.
Oh my god. I don't think we have to worry about that much anymore.
Post Malone. He's grown too powerful.
The remnants of the nitpicking nerds.
They let him get the ring. Rebel didn't throw it in the volcano. But anyways, I'm Elijah Samuelson.
And I'm Spencer Cook.
And today what we're going to talk about, as I alluded to, we are going to discuss the dies to removal argument and how it applies to Commander and how we maybe think it's a little dismissive sometimes.
Yeah, recently, our good old friends at the EDH Recast podcast made an episode about dies to removal, the concept. And I just want it to be known that they stole this episode idea from us.
Yeah, you see, the scheduling at EDH Takes, we have our ideas backlogged for like a year. And we've been working on this one for quite a while, but like I said, beset on all sides by enemies. I'm pretty sure they have us bugged because this is not the first time we've had this issue.
We have some sort of a traitor in our midst. I think sending, mail, graffiti bombs to Joey's house. Telling them what kind of stuff we're making so they can make it first because they know that we're not going to make an episode in a timely manner.
Who's the most traitorous member of like the EDH Takes like extended crew? Could be Gigas, Jesse, perhaps.
I think it's Jesse.
Likely Jesse. He's an agent of chaos.
Yeah, I never trust a man with a cup tribal deck. That's no one that you can't leave that man alone. You don't know what
he's not well. He's unhinged. Chaos, baby.
Yeah, but anyway, so they made an episode about that, but I think they didn't touch on a lot of things that we want to talk about today. So I think. There's still a lot to say.
Yeah, I was glad to hear Jim because he's very easy to listen to, and I like having a rules committee member on a podcast talk about that stuff. I think that's,
good insight.
It'd be nice if we could get a rules committee member on. Maybe we should actually reach out to one and just see what happens.
Why don't you just become the rules committee member? Then we could have one on every episode.
They could use another white man on there.
We need a couple more white guys on that.
Yeah, we gotta diversify a little bit.
But so
yeah, it just seems like with every new set recently, there's some kind of must answer, or very borderline problematic creature or like some kind of new threat introduced to the format. And a lot of the time, these things aren't as bad as people initially think. Kind of like that. Was it like Bootlegger's Stash?
Yeah. That
card's a piece of garbage.
I don't know if any of you guys have seen people play that card, but that was an iconic... I usually don't think that price of a card always correlates to how strong it is. But that was a card which had a very funny example of being spoiled at $50 price tag, and then over the course of 4 weeks dropping down half the price, immediately because people just realized that it wasn't as good as they thought it was. Yeah. But, yeah, like you were saying, though, but it feels like in Commander, there's, a plethora of just insane, must-answer cards that come out, and they usually always a bit of a redundant, not exactly correct, but there's a lot of time, there is a lot of drama, a lot of, internet discussion about these sort of things. I remember earlier this year when the new Elish Norn card came out, and people were very upset talking about that.
That's a very good example of this, because I think what mostly sparked that is Sheldon wrote a Star City Games article.
Yeah.
Kind of, not necessarily previewing the card, but just his thoughts on it and how it goes for Commander. And he said something along the lines in his article that the rules committee now, I think this is a good thing Wizards does, they show cards before they're released.
Yeah.
And he was quoted from the article saying something along the lines of please don't make cards like this in the future. Mm-hmm. And people took a lot of issue with that because they're like, what are you talking about, Sheldon? It dies to removal.
Yeah, and that's a sentiment that we hear echoed a lot.
Yeah, I mean, you don't really have to worry about anything being too strong because obviously it dies to removal. Just always, it's no issue.
Yeah.
No problem. Just have removal.
And so I don't want to, recount the hundreds of times that this has happened in the last, 3 years or whatever, but the spurring on of this podcast episode was about, like you kind of alluded to at the very start of the episode, a little bit of a flash forward, we call that a setup in the comedy business. But it was a tweet that did the numbers on Magic Twitter by enemy of the show, Mitch Completed. I just decided that now. It hasn't been decreed yet. Don't worry.
I think I want to make a statement. Actually, I'm going to go farther than you.
Okay.
All Mitches, enemies of the show.
Dang.
We don't has there ever been a good Mitch?
Let's think.
We got Mitch from Commander Quarters.
Yeah.
Mitch McConnell.
Mitch Completed.
Yeah, name one good Mitch.
I can't think of any other Mitches.
See, the good Mitches that I know, they go by Mitchell. Our friend Reed, he knows Mitch the bitch.
True, yeah.
Who's a little bitch.
He is a bitch.
So, that's all I'm saying. Show me a good Mitch.
Yeah, okay. Well, the jury's still out on whether all Mitches are enemies of the show.
Yeah, prove us wrong.
But, I'm sure, as you can see on the screen right now, Eli, you want to just, explain this sweet...
Yeah, so, for those who don't know, It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia is a very popular comedy show. It's very funny. It's spawned a lot of memes around it. There's the famous meme of Dee talking to Dennis, Mac, and Charlie and saying, how do 3 grown men in their 30s not have X amount of money between them? So the meme here is, how do 3 EDH decks not have one piece of removal between them? And it's the 3 of them saying, ban, ban, ban. And Mitch's captioning on this meme is appropriate response to a 1/1 with no evasion.
And this is in reference to the new card Orcish Bowmasters, I think it's plural.
Orcish Bowmasters. So for those who don't know, is a 2-mana black creature. It's a 1/1 with flash. When it enters the battlefield or whenever an opponent draws a card that is not their first card for turn, it deals 1 damage to any target, and you amass Orcs 1.
A little bit of a lot of text there. No, but the funny part, the reason that this tweet kind of frustrated us so much, is just that the referencing it as a 1/1 with no evasion is not even related to what the card is good for. It's like
Hull Breacher's just a 3/2 with no evasion.
Yeah, it's like seeing Thassa's Oracle and saying, oh yeah, this is just it's like a 2/2 1/3. Yeah. It's it's just a 1/3 with no evasion. It's that's not what matters. That's not what's important.
And I would maybe argue a creature that comes in a middle to best case scenario kills every other creature. That's a pretty good form of evasion.
Yeah.
So, this was just an interesting thing because, this went super popular and viral. It got 1,600 likes, 132 retweets. We saw it all over. We notably saw Pleasant Kenobi.
Bunch of other Magic
This
celebrities.
is fucking great.
This is fucking great. Also, Twitter being very cool right now and not showing us comments unless you've logged in.
But oh no, it's X now, so it's a brand new feature.
My bad. It's a good feature.
Yeah.
But yeah, they're like, oh blimey, that's fucking great, bro.
I would like to commend. Again, we can't pull up the exact tweets right now. Maybe I can find this on mobile, but I know there was one listener of the show that I recognized on there arguing with this guy, and I want to say that. I think you did a very good job of getting your point across in a respectful way and talking to this guy, despite how dismissive he was being towards you. So, good on you.
Good job. Fighting the good fight.
Being a good faith actor. So,
yeah.
Thank you.
But, so, this whole concept of, every good card that comes out, is just fine, and, a powerful pushed card is, totally fine because it dies to removal, is not a good argument for making a better experience in the game. I don't think that every card being a must answer, and not just must answer, but must answer now at flash speed, right? Or like whatever, in response to a thing, must answer now or immediately lose, or maybe that's a bit hyperbolic, maybe only marginally lose the game. I don't think that is necessarily the most healthy of game design choices.
Yeah, the rules committee has a statement on banning cards along the lines of, I might be butchering this a little bit, but that they don't like cards that they feel like reduce players' meaningful ability to self-express in the game.
Yeah.
And you could argue that, like, these cards, like, I'm not saying, like, these cards are so good that people feel like they need to play them so that, like, they're losing slots in their deck. I think what's happening there with this sort of thing is players being forced to run, like, over 10 pieces of spot removal because of the dies to removal argument. I feel that reduces people's ability to self-express and, like, do the thing that they want to do in Commander. Like, now that sounds pretty casual, I know. That's pretty radically casual. But, like, you hear a lot of people, like, I know PJ, Commander Replay, I think the Command Zone has even upped their template on removal from over 10. And it's like, how much is enough? And is it ever enough?
Well, and that's, okay, and to rein it back just a little bit, Eli and I love interaction in Magic. We love, like...
I want that to be clear, yeah.
Yeah, we really enjoy, like the moving pieces of Magic, you know, attacking, blocking, removing things, you know, interacting with your opponent via, you know, your spells and your abilities, right? But there is an extent to which, like, you just have, like the dies to removal crowd would make you believe that any time that they'll say things like, what do you mean there's 3 players at the table and no one has removal? It's like, that's not how statistic and odds work. Like, you don't always have, like, if you have 10 pieces of, I don't have the statistics my offhand right now, but the statistics necessary in order to, like, ensure that someone has a removal, like, in the first 2 turns of the game, you need to play, like the odds to get, like, good odds of that, you have to be playing upwards of, like, 20, 30 pieces of single target removal, and that's just not appropriate.
Now,
I'm just making those stats up, by the way.
Speaking of semi-viral tweets, friend of the show, rare thing nowadays.
Yeah, you gotta fight for that right.
Rachel Weeks from Now the Command Zone after Josh fucking Tywin Lannister the Commander Sphere podcast. He took him out.
That's a pretty good reference.
Rachel tweeted, quote, "It dies to removal, folks out there thinking every card in my hand is Swords to Plowshares."
It really do be like that. It's like,
yeah, you can have, like, an adequate, like, to above average amount of removal in your deck, and, like, yeah, sometimes, like, it's good that you have it, but, like, there's still gonna be games where, like, you just don't have that, or you don't have enough of it, because the way that Commander shakes out now is player A tries to win the game, 3 players remove everything they play because it's like, oh, that person's scary. They were trying to win the game. They just fucking stomp them into the dirt. Player B plays out their threats. Maybe they get stopped 1 time. They play a second one. Oh no. Why aren't you playing more removal?
Well, and there, yeah. The other way that the game plays out, which is terrible, by the way, it feels awful, is player A has a, slightly fast start and plays a, must answer now threat, like maybe they play a tear grid or something on turn 3 or whatever, right? Player B, who has not played their ramp spell, missed their ramp spell on 2, plays like a beast within on turn 3. So now they've removed the must remove threat because do it or lose. But now they've also kamikazed themselves into losing the game, and then the other 2 players are now in the best place possible. Even player A is in a better place possible than player B. So I like to some extent, the response to every card being a must remove card is just to play your own must remove card and hope that the player with the removal spell chooses the other guy's must remove card.
Yeah, because I've talked about this before. I mean, we've talked about this. Single target removal in Commander is pretty bad because it's card disadvantage. Like you were saying, like those other 2 people are off scot-free. I'm a big fan of removal spells that hit, like, multiple things, or, like, maybe draw you a card, and they're not very efficient, so, like, people don't play them because that's been drilled into everyone's head that, like, efficiency and, like, speed is, like, the key for Commander.
It's also, like, the problem with must-remove cards coming into play so early in the game is the less, the earlier you're in the game, the less mana you have, the more, like, you're wasting playing a removal spell. Like I was saying, like something like a Beast Within or someone like playing like a Chaos Warp on their like turn 3, like you're just like kamikazing yourself through the gutter to like, that's why that, Eli, when I play a lot of removal, I really like, very cheap, efficient removal. Like I'm a big fan of like, Nature's Claim. Oh my God. Premium artifact enchantment removal because it's 1 mana, right? Mm-hmm. Stuff like Rapid Hybridization, stuff like Path to Exile, Swords of Plowshares, amazing cards. You can fit them in, if you need to play them early, you can maybe fit them in with something else. So that's why those are so good. But you can't just go and fill your deck with 15 single target removal spells because you're just not going to contribute to the game on your own. Like, you're going to contribute, but you're never going to win.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm ranting a little bit, I apologize, but what were you talking about, Eli?
Well, there's that, and then there's also, I guess, what do we determine is like necessary to remove? Because like there's a lot of like game-ending things, but like if everything's like that, there's all like these value engines, these cards that like just snowball but there's cards that like are very good, but they're not like on the tier of an Orcish Bowmasters or like something like pre-banning like Hull Breacher or something. And I think there's this idea that to like keep up in Commander, you have to be interacting with all of those things. Like I used to feel this way because I'm very like card advantage like focused and like maybe like too much so. I'd see like a Thrasios or something, like some kind of small like not even like always super efficient, but like a value engine, something that's going to get cards over time. And I think have this mindset of like I can't allow you to have that because that's just going to like maybe like a Morbid Opportunist now is a good example.
Yeah,
like something that's going to draw you a lot of cards over time. And I think, like, no, I can't allow this person to have that. And that's something that I think I see pretty often now is people have removal, and they just want to use it. They want to contribute to the game, and they see, I've got my removal spell or whatever. What's the best target that I can use this on right now? Because, like, I've been told interaction is good. Like, I should be able to do that. But you just can't do that with everything. It's not reasonable.
Yeah. You really have to pick your battles very carefully. And, sometimes like we were talking about, like, a whole turn went by and no one had removal. Like, sometimes you're just banking on the fact that it's not going to be that bad, and you're just like, it might be the case that there's like someone plays something scary, like a Neheb, the Eternal or whatever, right? Mm-hmm. And like, I should not let this person untap, but also it might not be that bad, and I can just make another play that could help me out, and maybe someone else will have something, or maybe it won't be able to get in an attack or something, right? Like, it's not that simple to, like, just have the removal spell. And also, you were saying earlier, Eli, about how you kind of see red a little, or at least used to see red at the card advantage thing. So I kind of, in my past, have had kind of the opposite thing, where I see red at the mana advantage. So, like, I always had the mindset of, like, I'm going to use my premium removal spell on, like, a Bloom Tender on the early game, because I just know that that's going to catapult someone ahead, right? But I don't know, man. It's a hard conundrum to be in. I'm not sure what's right at this point, I'm gonna be honest. Like, I don't know what the better play is.
I would just say, I mean, this is tough to do with, I think I've heard the phrase untrusted players as a way to refer to randoms at the local game store. Because you see a lot of Commander players just trying to do the, like, objectively correct or like strongest thing they can do, and that's oftentimes just like playing a really fast combo or playing really somebody will just play the Turgid deck because they're like, oh, this seems really fun, this seems really cool, or they'll play the Krenko deck and be like, oh, I'm just gonna like do my thing, and my thing is just either stopping my opponents from doing anything or just like winning the game on like turn 5 or 6.
I think that's a pretty now I'm not trying to say that you are wrong for having fun in a certain way, but I personally don't like to play the decks that are I do my thing, I don't get interacted with or I win, like if I get interacted with I don't, like the Krenko kind of situation where it's like I play Krenko and then you kill Krenko and Krenko dies and I'm having a really bad time. Or you don't kill Krenko, and I'm making, dozens of tokens and playing a Perforos and killing everyone or something, or, playing, Battle Hymn or Goblin.
And this is why I think I used to see things like card advantage as such a threat because when you're playing against people that you cannot trust to just like be completely cutthroat and do the best possible thing with their deck, you just can't let them get away with anything. But I think some of my best games of Commander and the most fun I've had playing Commander is when I play with people who have established themselves as being able to be trusted to not just like instantly win the game if you give them like an inch.
Yeah.
And just like being able to let people cook, as we say, you know, like,
and you know, sometimes it backfires and they get a good draw or they go crazy, right? And that's actually just fine as long as it's not frequent, right? Like if someone wins off of a combo every once in a while from, you know, you let them have something, you know, bravo, you got it, right? But if it's a consistent thing, that's when it starts to become a little bit of a problem and you kind of have to start not letting them have anything. Mm-hmm. And that's usually not very fun for them or you. But yeah, so there's a lot to talk about on this subject.
Yeah, another thing I wanted to mention is on the topic of like removal, just sometimes not being enough or sometimes being like ill applied or there just being too many things that warrant removal. There's been a big shift towards every creature just having some really broken enter the battlefield effect.
Yeah.
Like, how are you going to say that Dockside Extortionist dies to removal? Like, that's just an insane thought. Like,
bro.
I guess if we're going to count in, like, counter spells being technically removal, everything dies to removal in that way.
In that
like,
way, sure.
Everything can be interacted with in the game of Magic.
Bro,
something's harder than other, but yeah, Dockside Extortionist, like...
Dockside's the worst because you have to remove it or it gets cloned, and after you remove it, it gets reanimated. So, there's no winning.
It's like...
You have to exile it, that's all.
Obviously, just have your...
Have your Swords to Plowshares or else.
Have your Trick Bind, and then your Swords to Plowshares immediately ready.
Yeah. Have your what is it? Disallow that.
Yeah. have these both ready to use on a 2-mana creature.
At any time. That they could just not play when you have open mana.
Good God, like how bad does that feel to have to use your premium removal on? That's one of the reasons one of my favorite cards is Serra Ascendant.
Yeah. Because
that is a 1-mana card that demands premium removal or a board wipe.
It's why, in a similar sense, it's why I love cards like Mother of Runes, where it's a 1-mana card that protects your cards from removal. Yeah. Eli, you ever play Limited and you come into this it's not just Limited, but sure, Limited's a good example. You're playing against a guy. He's got like, he's got a combat trick or a counter spell, right? And then, you're like, oh, I don't want to play into this counter spell. I'm already winning on board. So you just pass the turn, and then they don't use their mana. They just didn't, like they left their mana up and they couldn't use it because you didn't give them a good chance to use it. That's you trying to hold up your removal spells for the Dockside Extortionist, and they're just like, well, it's not safe to play it now. I just won't play it.
That feels so much worse in Commander too.
Yeah, and it's like they play their other good card, and what are you going to use your counter spell now on their other good card? They're just going to untap and play Dockside next turn now. Like, what are you going to do?
Yeah, it's hard to like not use that counter spell, but you probably really shouldn't. But like either way, like
it's a lose-lose. I mean, I don't know. Yeah. So it's rough.
We'll maybe like come back to that towards the end of this as far as like what's reasonable to like expect like people to do in Commander.
Yeah,
but I just want to say, like, in defense, like, we're not saying removal is a bad... Like, obviously you need in Commander, because you need some interaction.
You gotta be able to stop things sometimes.
Easy point to make. Part of winning the game, obviously, is not getting killed or not losing, so you need to have a timely removal spell used at the right point to, like, destroy the creature that might kill you, or, like, the combo piece that you need to, like, remove to buy yourself time to go over the top and win. But, yeah, unless you're capable of... going over the top and just like winning faster, you're gonna need some way to stabilize on the back foot. Like a board wipes are really nice for that, to buy you the time.
Yeah, it's also why the free free counter spells, deflecting SWAT, free like redirection kind of things are so strong in Commander, because it really gives you that freedom to be able to play the cards that you want to play, but also be holding up your emergency stopgap. Your oh fuck, go back button.
Those are also like a frustrating thing in the dies to removal argument, because it's like, oh, you're like playing your adequate amount of removal, and then meanwhile like the strongest player is like, I'm guilty of this sometimes, has like the deflecting SWAT or the free counter spells.
Yeah, for your removal.
So it's not like have like your normal amount of removal. It's like be ready for that like plus
protection. Yeah.
So
oh man, it feels so good when you combo off though with protection. You're like, oh, I'm kind of a goat, but yeah, you're a little bit of a degenerate, but I do it too. So
I must say, in Commander, a format where with 4 players, you're losing the game most of the time. You're going to need some removal to keep you alive, unless you're playing like pretty casually, or if you're just playing like super aggressive and capable of just going like fast,
vomiting out your hand, rear.
Yeah, like they're saying, player removal is the best removal, but like that's not always super fun because I think deciding you just need to win faster or outrace your opponents, I think that can lead to some pretty bad experiences and like those like arm races you hear about.
I feel like that slippery slope often is not a good experience.
So I think if I had to choose between, because I sometimes fall into that camp of just being like the better like move in the game rather than like think you can remove everything is have a very proactive strategy that is capable of like winning yourself, because like there's people who just play like tons of removal and like commit very little to the board, and like we were saying earlier, they're not set up to like really win themselves. They're just like stopping other people from winning. Like they're just like trying not to lose. So I generally say like be a little bit more proactive, but if that's all you're doing, you just devolve into being like insanely fast or like a combo deck or really some unfun decks.
Yeah, and sometimes I'm guilty of having access to a bunch of cards, a bunch of mana, but somehow still not having any removal or meaningful ways to win. Don't do that if you can help it as well.
So yeah, playing more interaction and removal is definitely much preferable to just trying to outrace everyone.
But we're not fans of overstacking on removal, like just going crazy with it. Like, I wouldn't play 15 single target, instant speed removal spells. I like to you got to play some. I also like to vary up my removal. Like I think, some creature-based ones that give some value are generally pretty fun. A card like the Pirate that comes in and like exile something, you can cast it. Like that's a removal spell kind of sometimes, but also it's I take your Soul Ring, So I like cards like that. I like cards like I haven't played it yet, but there's a red-black spell that's like a expensive removal spell that's like lets you cast the spell later for like impulsive exiles the card you kill. It's not super powerful, but a card like Death Sprout is like a 4-mana kill spell that rampant growths you. Maybe try playing some of those and cut back on some other ones. You might have more fun. It might be better. It's a little less efficient, but I don't know. I'm just spitballing some ideas.
I've had an idea for a commander deck, because we have a friend that really loves to play removal, but when all you're playing is removal, you kind of run out of removal.
You know what's a good card against Orcish Bowmasters? Well, not actually a good card against it, but you ever played Kumbaj Witches, Eli?
It's a great card, yeah.
Yeah. Why don't pop that in a deck and see what happens?
But I had this idea for a deck that's like all really like mostly not very good interaction or like some removal, but it all has draw a card staple onto it.
Yes, there's like 3 mana, destroy an artifact, draw a card or something.
Yeah, so you never run out of cards to play. It's a really stupid idea, but I think that'd be kind of fun.
Yeah, like the classic, like, I think everyone has had some point in their Magic career when they're like, oh my god, this blue counter spell that says counter a spell, draw a card. This is like the most broken card in the game, because but they're usually pretty hard to make work, actually, so it's you have to have a lot of mana to make all that stuff work.
Yeah, but
hopefully you can get it to work.
And in Commander, it's easy to throw out the bad threat assessment claim, but I think in general I play with a lot of people who play a lot, if like a decent amount to like a lot of removal, and so I play in a lot of games where I think like, oh, there was a lot of removal played this game, but it didn't ever really like, or rarely stopped somebody from like winning, or maybe like best case scenario it delayed like somebody for like one turn, or like somebody else stepped into because I think people just kind of need to be a little bit more frugal with removal. Like I was saying earlier, if somebody has like removal and they're like, oh, like this destroys an artifact or enchantment. What artifact or enchantments are out right now?
People do use their things I think especially for that kind of stuff, people will blow their artifact or enchantment removal on stuff that really doesn't matter that much. Like some inefficient card draw spell or something. We're fans
of like spending your mana, right?
Yeah, that's actually a thing. I used to fall for this a lot. I would just be like, well, I left up my mana, I'm gonna spend it. Like, you know, the player who spends the most mana in the game wins the game, you know, and I'm not gonna be caught dead not spending my mana. But I've kind of overcome that a little bit. There's probably still some level of truth in spending your mana, but I think these days I'm much more willing to pass the turn with a Swords of Plowshares up and then not use it, you know, if the situation doesn't arise. I just know,
I get this vibe that, well, and this is probably somewhat true. It's not maybe for me because I hate using removal in Commander. I'm so stingy with it, and like almost to the point where it's like kind of toxic sometimes. I'll just like be like, oh no, I can't do anything about that. Somebody else
do something.
Like kind of like not quite the like priority bullying or whatever they call it in like CEDH, like playing chicken with each other. But
you're just like, nah, that's kind of okay, do that. I guess.
Yeah. I'll be like, oh, like that's just like an 8/8 or whatever. Like it's not. That's not
like
that
I
bad.
could take 8, you know.
Yeah, exactly. But it can feel good to disrupt someone or like get somebody to get like gotcha somebody. Be like, pushes up glasses. I don't think so. Yeah, I can't let you have that. But like, you gotta understand, like that's not really that good for you either to be doing that. Yeah. Like, you know, it can feel good. I think more Commander players should retrain their brains a little bit to see using single target removal as more of a burden than like a cool thing you're doing.
Yeah.
I think
I was like, well, I guess I have to do this.
I think really like good Commander players, like an example that I was thinking about this, like, because I could just say, you know, myself, Spencer, but like
we don't like to use ourselves for examples.
We're probably the most humble people in the Magic community.
Yeah, I could see that.
But I thought of an episode of, and I think this maybe tilted you at one point, an episode of Game Nights or Extra Turns, where Josh needs to remove something with his like Chaos Warp, and he makes like a real big stink about like, and he's like winning that game, but he's like, oh man, this feels really bad to have to like take my turn off to do this, and he makes like a huge like show of being like, hey guys, I'm really doing you a big favor. Oh ho hum, I hate to do this, and I'm like, that's kind of the better play than being like somebody like an example. The opposite of this, I think, is our friend neutral of the show, neutral party, Krim, the Asian Avenger.
Yeah, neutral of the show.
He's known for playing a lot of control in Commander, and he loves playing you know, some blue-black, and he loves playing a lot of removal.
Grixis, you know.
He likes some Grixis. He loves playing removal and stuff. He loves to gotcha people. And he'll just do it. And he's got that like reputation as like kind of a troll Magic player.
Yeah, no, I get you. And it's a little frustrating when that kind of gameplay.
I just think it's straight not good. There was a famous moment that I really appreciated of one of their Game Nights lives where Krim is trying to make some kind of agreement with Josh, and Josh just hits him back immediately with something like, I don't trust you, you make weird decisions.
Oh my god. Well, on that subject that you were talking about, like that Josh situation, I think you're totally right. Like that definitely is like the better play of like being like, I definitely don't want to do my thing, like use my removal, like, you know, be stingy with it, stuff like that. That's probably definitely the right play. Just a little bit of a tangent, but like the frustrating part about that was that he was clearly winning, and he was like, guys, I'm doing you all a favor by solving this problem for you that is also the problem for me, who is winning. It's like, Josh,
he's trying to get something out of doing something that he was going to do anyway.
That he had. I mean, and that's a good strategy, right?
It's a good play.
Like everyone. I think everyone is guilty of being like, guys, I'm going to do this thing. It helps me. It helps you. Feel free to give me some good favor for it if you want to, right? I'm sure everyone's done something like that, and that's okay to some extent. But it feels bad when you're the arch enemy and you're like, guys, I'm helping you out here.
Like, oh, this is so tough for me. I have to spend 3 mana on 1 card right now.
Oh my gosh.
Whatever will I do?
Oh, that really hurts your deck, so I'm going to help you out here. Sitting with the hand of cards that it affects, you know. But it's all in, you know, Commander's a game of trickery to some extent, so I can't clown on Josh that much for that, you know. Fair play, you know.
Yeah, he is the politics master.
Yeah, so you mentioned that, and I was like, oh my god, I remember. I just got PTSD. You got me. But very cool. Speaking of Chaos Warp, I fucking hate playing Chaos Warp. It's one of the cards that I never want to put in my deck because it feels like it's the kind of removal that it fits in that slot of like 3 mana removal like that and like Beast Within and stuff like that, and you're just like Chaos Warp your thing, and like I'm gonna probably give you something else that I don't want you to have. It's It's why I might be super. I know we've had this argument. I think I don't know if we've had this argument on a podcast before, but I'm a really big hater of the green channel land. That's
Boseiju.
It's obviously a strong card. Okay, don't get me wrong. It's obviously very good. It's efficient, in your deck slots because it's a removal that doesn't take up a card slot. It's because it's a land, right? But man, I hate playing a removal that gives my opponent something. Man, it hurts my soul. Okay, that's all.
For like that card advantage perspective of like it's even worse. It's like not only are you're not even like going 1-for-1 with that one player. You're going like.
And sometimes with Chaos Warp, it's like tempo advantage sometimes too. It's like, I got to kill your commander or something, and they hit like, something equal mana value or even just land or whatever. It's like, oh, come on. It's rough. And I'm spending 3 mana on a Chaos Warp like that. I don't even want it. I hate it. Okay, I just hate it. Sorry for the rant's over.
I am with you 100% in most commander situations, but like I was talking earlier about some of my better games recently being ones where like I allow people to do their thing.
Yeah.
Like I have my Bassandra Battle Seraph deck, which is like a Pillow Fort deck, kind of designed to allow people to do their thing if possible.
Yeah.
And just let everyone get to this like crazy like
just
board
hope
state.
You live and be like, I'm gonna
just build this little like castle of glass and be like, maybe if somebody doesn't destroy this one enchantment, maybe I can survive.
Yeah.
And it's a fun deck. And I've played in that deck, I've got removal in the form of like things that like kill a thing and then give somebody the creature. Like I don't know if I have Generous Gift in there anymore.
The angel one,
but
maybe.
I've got the like 2 mana exile a creature or planeswalker, give them a 4/4 angel, which normally I would think is like a pretty bad card. But I was like, I want to like make the thing that like even if I have to like remove somebody's creature, like I want to give them the ability to like play the game and do stuff. So like Chaos Warp from that perspective. But again, like if you're playing with if you're doing untrusted play, as it were. Which I think in that Dies to Removal episode the EDH Rekcast did, I think Jim said something about how he doesn't like that term that much because it sounds very like a little disparaging towards strangers.
Well, the thing is, like when someone, this is actually what I'm getting at, and it's similar to the Boseiju thing. If I have like an early play or something, and someone Boseiju's my card, I'm like, sweet. Nice.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, and if I'm, like, playing a game, and I have, like, I play, like, a 4-mana spell or a 3-mana spell or something, and someone ends up Chaos Warping, I'm like, yeah, okay. Let's roll the dice. I'm gonna hit something good. That's how I feel when someone uses that. So that I never want to play cards that make my opponent feel good for me playing the removal. I mean, obviously I want them to have fun, but you know what I mean? Like, strategically.
I think I agree, because there's also, like, that... Maybe this is just how I feel about it sometimes with how it feels good for people to use removal on you like that. Like, people will, like, use that kind of removal on you and be like, oh, I owned that guy. I got him. And you're just like, no, this is fine.
Sick
this is
Assassin's Trophy, bro. I just got a land.
You're like, this is better. Like, there are way worse things that could have happened to me.
Yeah. I mean, maybe not better than me having my card, but it's getting there.
Yeah, like sometimes you get the beast token or whatever, and you're like, you know what, this could have been like way worse. This could have been,
I got a use for this.
This could have been Swords to Plowshares. This could have been a counter spell, like before I got my Enter the Battlefield thing. Like,
yeah. So I'm just saying. So what do we got next on the docket here? I kind of went on a tangent. I'm sorry about red cards and green cards.
Yeah. So we've kind of addressed the. Removal and Commander, and like we want to talk specifically about the Dies to Removal argument and how it's just not a very productive thing to say. I think there was a line from Jim on the EDH Rekcast episode saying something about how it's a good way to, like, saying it just play more removal is like a good way to be correct without being really helpful.
Yeah, I think I recall that. Yeah, and it's like, yeah, I guess I could play more removal. And it might be the right thing to do, but that the statement doesn't really help anyone.
And I think
right?
you kind of disagreed with Jim a little bit too,
do.
because like there's maybe the argument that maybe it's not even correct to just play like 20 pieces of removal in your deck.
I don't think that your deck just gets, it's a curve that goes up as you add more removal and then goes down at some point, right?
That's interesting. It's like a curvilinear relationship.
Yes,
yeah.
so like
a good point.
If you have 40 removal spells, obviously the curve is going down at that point, right? And identifying where the top of the curve isn't obvious. I believe that I think that top of the curve, the optimal point amount of removal, I think it's probably lower than I think a lot of people think. I don't know if I'm right. Like this is just my feel on the situation, but I would probably put it lower than most other people would. So that's why I might disagree with Jim a little bit in that statement he was making.
Maybe I'm misremembering this, but I think Dana might have had a point about saying, and this is what I would say to the guys play more removal argument is you should just play more card draw, because like card draw will allow you to have like the right type of card when you need it. Like, because you're not always, there's going to be times when like you really actually don't want to have like a bunch of removal. Like you want to like have things that are like proactive for you. So like getting that card selection, I think, is more important than just playing like 10 more pieces of removal. Because like I said earlier, like we know people who play a lot of removal in their decks. I feel like they're running out of removal.
Yeah.
Probably running out of removal more than like maybe I do sometimes, or like some other people who are just playing like a lot of card draw or like tutors do.
Well, yeah, like adding one divination to your deck, 3 mana, draw 2 cards, which I would not ever recommend anyone play. But adding a divination in the slot of a one piece of removal is, I think, depending on how much removal you have, it could be more odds of finding removal. Maybe that's not an exact example, but maybe a better card draw spell than that.
Play some kind of proactive engine. Use like creatures that come in and kill stuff to like. You won't get like as much of the instant speed removal in there, but you'll have the ability to interact with the game while being proactive, like a Palace Jailer or like a Loran or Cavalier of Dawn or some ones that I like because like I was saying, I really don't like to play that much removal. But I love creatures.
I noticed you mentioned 3 white cards there, Eli.
What
else am I going to say?
I guess I'm always jealous of Bane of Progress.
That is the best removal.
That is...
oh my god. But, interestingly enough, Eli, you were talking about the idea of playing more card draw, right? And that usually is the best way, one of the better ways to, have access to more of your removal, have, card, be the acceleration able to get to your cards that you need to get to. There's one situation where the card draw doesn't help you get your more removal. And that one situation is when you have to play your removal in like the first 3 turns of the game or so before you're able to play your card draw, right? And that's kind of some direction that you could argue that Commander is moving more towards the have your removal now. Have it on turn 3 after I play my mana rock and my 4 mana commander that will end up winning me the game.
Yeah, that's a good point. If we need to have removal in like the opening hand.
Yeah. So that's the only situation where the card draw doesn't help as much when you need it in the opening hand right away. But I think I would generally prefer the card draw over the excessive amounts of removal. I just thought I'd give the one counterpoint, right?
I want to play Commander with the type of people who allow it to be a 7+ turn game, like around that ballpark.
Yeah, and that's not to say that games can't end before then, but generally, right? Mm-hmm. Generally, without everyone playing a bunch of free interaction, we can have a game that lasts a little bit longer than I untap with my 4 mana, 5 mana commander and win immediately, right?
That having removal in the opening hand, that kind of ties into the next thing that I wanted to discuss here, which is something that we've talked about before together, but I'm not sure if we ripped this off of somewhere else or if this was a rare, unique thought for me. But I wanted to talk about how certain cards, like we said, pretty much everything you can make the argument in Magic, it's something that can be interacted with or it dies to removal. But there are certain levels and points of interaction for every different card that can die to removal.
Yeah.
And they can all be reacted to, but some must be answered a lot more quickly than others. For example, like a low mana cost combo piece or something.
So some cards need to be interacted with that turn or they win, like comboing two pieces together, right? Some cards need to be interacted with before that player untaps, like something with a tap ability, right? That's going to be very powerful. Some cards need to be interacted with before they hit the battlefield, like something with a really strong ETB effect, right? Mm-hmm. Some cards need to be interacted with before your opponent draws them because they're just too broken, like a free counterspell. And it's just there's all these different times you need to interact.
So while Orcish Bowmasters does die to removal, and you can argue, yes, it dies to a lot of types, because it is a 1/1, it can die to any amount of damage, and it can die to, it's a creature, so creatures are the easiest card type to remove. But creatures with haste and flash remove one of those extra points of interaction. They remove the ability to interact with them at sorcery speed.
Or with, the mana that you untap with, right?
Yeah, so I think those cards, like Hull Breacher and Orcish Bowmasters, the point of interaction, if, say, somebody's like going first, and they flash one of those in on their end step, and the next turn they go to play a wheel effect.
Yeah, like, what do you do about that?
The point of interaction was pretty much, like, you've got like one point of interaction there. You've got, like, either, like, counter it, like, when it comes in, like, kill it on the end step before they untap, or, like, kill it in response. Like, you've got less than, like, one turn
You
there.
had to have had proactively, have had removal for it.
Yeah, you have to, it's like, have the removal now. It's kind of like Rachel's tweet, like, not every card in your hand at that moment. And so if you, like, especially with Hull Breacher there, if you didn't have removal for that right then, you're not going to have any.
And you could argue, like, oh, they've got 3 mana up, or they've got 2 mana up for
you should have known. Yeah,
you should have known. You should play your whole game around the fact that your opponent might just not have a play. Or they have their flash creature that's going to win when they play it end step, then untap and, wheel. Yeah. That's the Hull Breacher problem, right?
So on the opposite end of that, I wanted to give an example of a card that I would say has potentially the most points of interaction in a game of Magic. And I was going through EDH Rec, and I figured, what's a good, like, deck that would play things that definitely do die to removal? And I was like, oh, Ishin, the samurai guy, the double combat triggers, double attack triggers. And I came across the card Drakuseth, Maw of Flames, which is a 7 mana, like 7/4, like 7/7 or something with flying. And when it attacks, it deals 4 damage to one target and then like 3 damage to 2 other targets. So it's a big 7 mana creature, so it's expensive. Its ability, you need to attack with it, so you need to, like, untap if you can't give it haste in some way. And then even when that ability happens, it doesn't, like, win you the game or generate, like, an overwhelming amount of value or advantage to the player who does it. It's like, it gives you a turn to interact with it, and then even if you do get to do the thing, it's not like Atali where, like, maybe it just, like, spiral. Like, that's, like, maybe Atali's, like, not that good still.
I've hit an extra combat spell off in Atali, and it's rough.
Yeah, like, it generates, like, an insane amount of value. Like, Drakuseth is just, like, one of the most fair cards.
Yeah, it doesn't have protection either, right? Like, a lot of cards have ward. So that very fair, and it goes in hand with fair. Lower on the power level, right? Like, not a exceedingly strong card. That doesn't mean that you can't play it and have success with it or have fun with it, but it's very fair, and that's kind of not great these days, right?
And it's a creature too, so, like, every color in Magic has some way to interact with creatures, whereas maybe if I was going to say, like, oh, Smothering Tithe, like, dies to removal, well, I guess nowadays you have, like, garbage like Feed the Swarm, like, so more colors can, like, interact with it, and you have, like, a couple of extra red cards now that, like, mess with enchantments.
But like, it's harder, right? It's harder.
But yeah, it doesn't die to as many things, and also it's a card kind of like, if you have, like, Smothering Tithe, like, plus Wheel, like, the point of interaction is
Bro,
like, sure, they're going to draw more cards, but, like, you'd have to, like, immediately kill the Smothering Tithe in response to
also,
that.
you have, like, Smothering Tithe plus Counterspell in your hand. They go to their turn, they draw their card, you get your mana, and now you have your Counterspell up for it.
Yeah.
But, I actually think that, I'm not a game designer, but allow me to put on my game design gloves for a second. Eli, you and I are really big Sun Titan fans. I think Sun Titan is a fun card in a game design sense because it both gets you something It takes a while to do its thing. Like, it doesn't have protection. You got to wait a turn. It's an attack trigger, right? Like that. It has all those ways of interaction with it, but it also gets you a little something right now, right? Like you play a Sun Titan and it gets killed before you can attack with it. You still got something out of it. You had your little bit of fun.
Yep, Sun Titan was actually originally going to be my example for a creature that has many points of interaction, but because of the enter the battlefield ability, like there's still like you can't like say I had like Dockside Extortionist in my graveyard and like I play a Sun Titan and people are like, well, Sun Titan's 6 mana, it dies to remove. It's like, well, there's times where you would have to do something more than just like kill the Sun Titan afterwards.
And another card, maybe it's not a good example of like the most fair card. I mean, it's not. I think it's a pretty strong card, but also like it's kind of not that bad design. Anji, Falcon Wrath, or is it that one? The one that
that's the one.
Yeah, sorry. It has haste, so it's got that ability to do its thing right away. But usually, it's not gonna. You need to have at least if you're gonna play it with haste and then like do something absurd, you're gonna need to have like a lot of mana to be able to do something later, or you're gonna need to be able to like untap with it. So usually. It's not going to come down early and not have points of interaction early. Like maybe late in the game you play it and then you have the ability to do the thing. But I think it's, you get a little bit of value now and you get more when you untap.
You've just reminded me of a point that I wanted to bring up on the dice to removal thing. Could you maybe argue that like really strong or broken commanders don't even necessarily really die to removal because they just go back to the command zone? Like people would say like, oh, Chulane, it's a really strong card, but it dies to removal. And it's like, well, Chulane's my commander. One person removes it. Second person removes it. I'm playing Simic, and I'm playing Chulane, so assuming I get like maybe even like 1 or 2 triggers before it gets removed, I'm getting more lands into play and drawing cards. Like, it never feels that bad to keep just recasting that, but you have to.
Yeah.
But they just keep playing it.
Or a card like Maelstrom Wanderer, where it's like, it dies, it gives haste, so you gotta kill it, right? Otherwise,
right?
They
or like
win,
Emoti, Celebrant, like any of those Cascade commanders. It's like it doesn't even
die to removal.
It's not that bad because you're always like up a card even after it dies to removal, and you have to remove those.
Yeah. Yep.
So the broken commander design. That's why another thing I wanted to touch on here is that really fast starts and the increase of super like fast mana, like big mana producing cards, that can reduce the amount of time that players have to respond in a game before they start getting like just straight knocked out or being locked out of the game.
Yeah, I was getting mad recently reading Reddit threads talking about Jewel Lotus, because there'd be like players that'd be talking about like it's like, oh yeah, Jewel Lotus is a card, would you guys play Jewel Lotus in deck? And there were several people in the comments on REDH being like, yeah, I think Jewel Lotus, I wouldn't really play... I'd play it in, like, decks that have, like, 5 or 6 mana cost commanders, because then you can, like, be able to play the game. And I'm just like, if you're playing your strong 5 or 6 mana cost commander on turn 2 or 3, like, with a Jewel Lotus, that is not much time for your opponents to be able to, react to that sort of thing, and it's not fun. I think Jewel Lotus, I'm going to get hate for this, and I accept it. I think it's a bad design card. It's not fun to play or to play against. And I said that in the thread, and I got,
That's where
they were mad at me.
We find common ground with the command zone. We make a truce with Josh Lee Kwai because he famously told Wizards of the Coast, he said, do not do this again. Do not make Jewel Lotus.
Yeah, Eli, we had a friend who would be like, I mean, not in the sense of Jewel Lotus, but it's like, oh, I'm playing my, mono blue Nezahal deck. I have to play Mana Vault so I can, Mana Vault and Mana Crypt so that I can play it early so I can actually be able to play the game. And it's like, no, I don't think you having your Nezahal in play on turn 3 and for the rest of the game is great.
Yeah, I don't know. Maybe I'm a little cynical, but do you feel like people are using Jewel Lotus to play a fun, like a very many like points of interaction commander like Zitalpa? Or do you think they're using it to play like a turn 3 or sooner Coma?
Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
And just lock people out of the game. Like, what do you think is happening more often here?
Like,
I don't know.
Even if you're not locking people out of the game, like, you're not supposed to have, like, your Commander Villas in play, like, on turn 3 or 4. Like,
yeah, do you think people are more often playing, like, a Joven on turn 2, or are people playing a Kurik, Son of Yawgmoth on turn 1?
And then winning the next turn.
Yeah.
Yeah. Are they... yeah, we can go all day with this, but let's leave it at that. So I think that's nearing the end of what we have. Do you have any other big topics you want to mention, Eli, before we wrap this up?
No, I mean, we'll probably remember more stuff, and we'll come back to this one maybe, because it's a really interesting debate, and it's something so frequent to see in the Magic community. Anytime anyone raises a complaint about a card that seems a little too strong, or is like, I don't like the design of that card. That doesn't seem very fun.
I would never complain about the design of a card, Eli.
And Magic play, it's this weird thing. Like, we've talked about like the locus of control and like levels of personal accountability, where people will get mana screwed or mana flooded and be like, oh, there's nothing I could have done about that. But with like broken creatures being printed all the time, people are like, oh no, that's not that good. I would have a removal spell. I would do something about that.
Or if I lost a game, I think I need to pack more removal. I didn't have enough. And it's like, no.
Yeah, it's this weird thing. Like I don't know if it's just a good way to make yourself like look like a really good Magic player, is to just be very dismissive of like any like good card and be like, that's not that good. Like that's not that.
Yeah, it's like
I feel that because like I've seen some Spencer. I don't want to like big us up too much, but I feel like we've played some very powerful Magic.
Yeah,
we've walked with giants. Like I've seen some broken, degenerate shit. I'm not talking like CDH, but like on the, I mean a little bit, but I've seen like on the, and I'm aware of like CDH. So like I know like the worst possible thing that could happen.
We've played with, we played with decks, maybe not our decks as much. We tend not to like live on the cusp of CEDH, but played with people that play very strong, high power level, expensive decks, right? And we can hang sometimes, but like generally, it's not always just have all the removal. Like that's not all there is to it.
And just because there's better cards than like a really broken card, that's not like an argument for like the card not being good. Like Consecrated Sphinx is a really good card. So if they made like a 5-mana version of that like only drew you like one card on like each opponent's like draw, like I'm not going to say like, oh, that's not that good.
Yeah, it's like Consecrated Sphinx is a great card, but I still want to play my Sire of Stagnation or whatever, the black and blue card that draws cards in a similar way. It's like, okay.
And like, not to say like any of those cards are like broken or like ban worthy, but I generally like wouldn't want to see like, they've got like Jewel Lotus and see like a better version of that card, or like a slightly weaker version of like a really like if they made like Coma 2 that made like it was pretty much like the same thing, but it made like 2/2s or something, and people be like, oh, it's not that bad. Like Coma was totally fine.
And it's like no, I don't like the more and more cards that fit into this, like, I'm gonna say degenerate game design, but that's a loaded term, so let me rephrase and just say game design that I don't care for as much. The more and more cards that come out like that, the more and more players are going to be playing those, the more and more it's normalized, the more and more common it becomes. I was talking at the EDH Takes Extravaganza, which we just held last weekend. The third annual. We had 18 players this year. I was just talking about how the new Will and Rowan cards that got spoiled, and how I was very frustrated with the design of I think it was Rowan is the life lost one. It's like, and the thought is the question, the Spencer rants kind of thing was, how much mana does Wizards of the Coast think you should be able to make with your 3-mana commander the turn after you play it? And the answer is, I don't fucking know, 20. So that's what the Rowan does.
Probably our best trivia question, the spite round.
Yeah. So I'm just expressing how the more and more they make these kinds of cards, the more and more you're going to have removal for them now.
And as much as I don't like it, with like Orcish Bowmasters in the post Hull Breacher world, all I had to think about that card sometimes in regards to like, is it like too good? Is it broken? Is it ban worthy? All I can think with like modern Magic design is, thank God it only deals 21 damage and makes a 21/21 or 22/22 actually.
Thank God it only.
Thank God that's all it does. It doesn't just immediately win you the game.
Thank God it doesn't immediately like make individual 1/1 tokens, and it just keeps putting counters on one.
Yeah, thank God if that plus wheel doesn't just immediately make me lose like Hull Breacher.
Yeah,
that's all I can hope for now.
So to put a bow on this, Eli, why don't because it was the the impetus for this episode, why don't we give our take on Orcish Bowmasters? I'll give mine first, and you can tell me if you agree or not, okay? Here you go. Ready, guys? It's a crazy take. It's not ban-worthy. It's not particularly quote-unquote fun design, but it's also a card that I'd probably love to play. Very cool. What about you, Eli?
I think I agree. I don't think it's ban-worthy. I think it's in that category of, I can think of 2 other black cards right now that are like so strong that I feel like we just kind of don't play them, or like people just don't play them out of like guilt.
Thinking
be like Dothy Voidwalker and Opposition Agent.
Yeah.
Like I rarely see those cards, and if I see them, like I immediately like know, oh, this person's like here to they're here to play. Like they're
I agree that those cards generally aren't the most fun to play, but I love me a fucking Dothy Voidwalker.
It's just so good.
And I don't own an Orcish Bowmasters, but it is probably a card that I would love to play. I love flash creatures. It's efficient and cheap.
Yeah. Here's the thing with like me and powerful cards. I think people might get the idea sometimes that I do not like powerful Magic and I don't like powerful cards. That is not true. I love strong cards. You know that,
they're
Spencer.
great.
But here's the thing. When you play really strong cards like that, you establish yourself as somebody who cannot be trusted to not like cut throats and do whatever it takes to win the game. And I try very hard, especially with kind of lower power level playing like Commander players or like with strangers, to try and establish myself as the kind of person that can be trusted to be allowed to have like a board state and not just immediately win the game or steamroll people.
Yeah, so you got to play strong cards somewhat fairly.
And you need to know the environment for it, I think. Because like, if I'm playing, like we were saying, we used to play with groups that were like playing very strong stuff. Then it's fine. Like, go off, do whatever you want. It's fair game.
Yeah.
But if I'm the one person like playing Orcish Bowmasters against like my opponents playing precons at the game store and they're not allowed to have a creature the entire game, like, how's that make me look? Like, do you think those people are having a good time? Do you think they want to play with me again?
Yeah, you're playing like Orcish Bowmasters plus like a way to instant speed like draw cards or something, and it's like, oh, I can just like ping it for 2, ping it for 3 on this turn if I want to. It's like, oh, okay.
So like, you're fine. You're not a bad person for doing that. It's just like,
you pick your battles, man.
This is kind of a setup to our next podcast that we're hopefully going to do. Just think about like what kind of experience you're looking to cultivate and how you can build for that, because there's certain cards that I think maybe the objectively correct thing would be to play them.
Yeah.
But you've got to think about like what's going to be the result of that, I think.
Yeah. Is the extra turn spell going to be the correct card in my Azami deck? Yeah. Is that what I want to do? No. And with that, I'd like to thank you all for listening.
Yeah, I mean, if one more thing before we go, I just want to put in that Jim on that EDH Rec episode, he talked about understanding the ways that people want to engage with the game, like the format being like more or less competitive. And I would just urge people to understand that I think most Commander players are leaning much less competitive, and that it's not reasonable to just always tell them or admonish your opponents, be like, you should run more removal, you should have held up more removal for that, when like that's just not how they're looking to play the game.
I think it's not a great pipeline. I feel like there's like a pipeline for new Commander players to just like push them towards the most powerful stuff and the most efficient stuff possible, and it's like, that's not necessary. I mean, like, you can maybe a slow thing, maybe, I don't know, but like it's gone too far, I think. We need to go back. I sound like a politician.
Before did we want to talk about the extravaganza?
Yeah, let's talk about that.
Yeah,
so
let's do our little end step here.
Yeah, okay.
So for those not in the know, I mean, it's an exclusive. It's a pretty it's an elite club, you know.
You got to be in the area. You got to be willing to be in the area. That's pretty much it.
You pretty much have to like know us and like seem like a decent person, or like be free, or like have it so I remember to invite you.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, I feel really bad if I didn't get an invitation to somebody who would have wanted to go, but we yearly your parents, Spencer, they have a winery. Did you want to shout out the
Yeah, sure. 4E Winery, go check them out. They're make great wine. I think we do
really good wine.
We do shipping to some continental states depending on your laws, so you could get a bottle if you want.
Yeah, so the last couple of years we've invited a bunch of friends out to come to the winery for a day, and we just drink wine, play Commander. We force people to listen to us do trivia and
self-indulgent shit. Yeah.
Yeah. We give people prizes for their time, though, so
yeah, they give out
out
some good cards. Yeah. But, yeah, we've done this for 3 years now, and, it's been getting bigger and bigger every year. I think first year we had about 8 people or so.
Yeah, the first year I invited a lot of people with, like, a lot of notice. I think we only ended up having 6 people show up, including us. And it was a lot of fun. It was a great time, but I was a little disappointed that we had a kind of a low turnout. Second year, we had a perfect 8, which was a really good number for having Commander pods going at all times.
Yeah.
And this year, I sent out a bunch of invites to a lot of people with very little notice.
Yeah, like a week or less.
And 18 people were there.
Yeah.
Not all at the same time, but it was incredible.
So, yeah, we had a lot of fun playing Commander. We did a Commander Legends draft, which was fun as well. Original Commander Legends 1. Pretty fun set, I think.
You drafted a really cool Boros Equipments deck. That was what I did. Drafted the original. The first time that we drafted Commander Legends, I had Tago and Arden like you did.
Yeah, and I did that. It was actually really strong.
Yeah.
I was having a great time. I got the Commanders Have Cascade card, and then I got to play that. Then I got to play both my Commanders in the next turn and Cascade into an equipment and immediately equip it to my Fencing Ace and attack. It was sick.
I was jealous of your deck. I first picked Emoti, the Cascade, because I was like, this card's broken. Like, I gotta see it. And then I just picked a bunch of like expensive things like card draw and other like. There's like that dinosaur with it's like 7 mana with Cascade, so it cascades.
Hell yeah!
I ran out of spells in my deck.
Yeah, you cast them all.
Yep, I was down to 1 8-mana spell that I couldn't cascade into and lands. So
that's a good problem to have, though, right?
Yep, that's how I lost that game. Pretty much, I just ran out of things to do.
And in my game, I also lost to a friend of the show, Bradley, who took a convincing win with Aromi, whatever it is called, of the Dread Tide or whatever, which is who I played the first time we did this draft. And he had this really cool deck, and he managed to, in one turn, he got this crazy combo off where he drained us out with a couple of synergistic token cards, and was able to deal like 25, 30 damage to the table in one turn. It was pretty cool.
Yeah, so
good on you, Bradley. Champion again. After you took me out with my own Commander at the last EDH Extravaganza.
Sadly, we didn't have time to do the Boros Royale. One of these years.
The great thing about the Boros Royale, Eli, is that no matter who wins, it's a win for the Legion.
What we did get to do is, I didn't play very many games of like normal Commander, but I played a game against friend of the show, Jesse. And Jesse has a deck with all of the Raging Goblins, all the 1-mana 1/1s with haste. And I have a deck with all of the Fencing Aces, all the 2-mana 1/1s with double strike. And so we had the ultimate showdown of Goblins versus Fencing Aces. And Thomas was there too, and we just beat up on him.
I feel like the Fencing Aces have a strict advantage in that fight.
Yeah, I was telling my brother about this, and he was like, how'd you think that was going to go? Yeah, so the Fencing Aces did pretty well.
Yeah, so you can see a photo on our Twitter if you want to see a couple pictures from the night. Don't feel like you have to do that. But it was a great time, and we look forward to another one next year.
Yeah, we're going to have to work harder to earn an extra. It's funny that we had our biggest turnout at the year with the least content on the channel.
If you want to come down and come to the event, you're not invited. So don't do that.
Unless you want to slide into the DMs and be like, we could work something out.
Yeah,
if you're willing to bring like all the snacks and like some prizes and stuff, like you can buy your way in.
Yeah, there's probably a way like.
We can be bought, yeah. I want people to know that.
Foils and cookies, maybe.
If you want us to say something really offensive on the podcast, like, I'd probably do it for like $100.
Yeah, I mean, it depends what it is, but it's negotiable.
Yeah.
Yeah. So anyway, thanks for watching, guys. Go subscribe to the channel, follow the Twitter, all that stuff. Listen to the podcast on Spotify.
We'll be back hopefully soon. I think we got some good ones ready, so... Yeah, be ready for that. And thanks for listening, everybody.